there are tons and tons and tons of costs associated with athletics, especially at the high school level. And from school to school to school, you're going to notice there are different budgets, and certain schools have a different budget for different athletics. So one school that's a mile, 2 miles down the road might have $0 or just a couple $1,000s in their athletic budget. And the school 2 miles down the road might have $100,000 in their athletic budget. It all depends on the boosters and all the different things. So fundraising has become a massive piece of athletics because there's costs associated with it. Well, today we're going to be bringing on the founder of Booster, which is a fundraising platform, but he's going to explain the difference between Booster and their approach with it, which has a massive focus on content, which you'll hear in the interview, as compared to the other traditional fundraising platforms that you've seen, and why this is going to be helpful for coaches and athletes alike. Because some coaches, they know they need to get the money, but they just go back to those traditional, do a free throw, shoot-a-thon, and all these different things, and go ask for X amount of dollars for this and this. This is a different type of fundraising platform, but it makes it exciting. It makes it unique. And it's a really cool opportunity. And so I love talking business and sports. And that's why I'm really excited for you guys today to learn from Scott Birnbaum, again, the founder of Booster. Enjoy this episode of the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru Podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Gametime Guru Podcast. Shane Larson here, host of the show. Excited to have you guys with us. I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, which is Nation's Best Football, Bob Smith, who you guys have met before on the show. You've seen some of the posts that we've done on our social media feeds. Bob Smith was gracious enough to connect me with our guest today. And I want to shout out Nation's Best Football, and what he's got going on over at Nation's Best is quite spectacular. So stay tuned for that. You guys, if you're following me on social media, you might have heard about the NIL Marketplace, NIL The Marketplace, the event that's going to be happening in Indianapolis in July. Make sure to go check that out if you're listening to this right now. But if you've listened to this, let's just say this is later on, you guys come back to this interview and it's past, well, go follow Nation's Best Football and find out when they're going to be doing their other events that pertain to NIL. Now, as you guys heard in the introduction, super cool opportunity for us to take a little, swing at the business side of the sports world here and learn about fundraising from the founder of Booster. His name is Scott Birnbaum. Scott, thanks for joining the show, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So before we get into learning about, the platform and, what exactly Booster is all about, let's talk about you, Scott, and kind of like get to know you just a little bit, and just kind of figure out who Scott Birnbaum is outside of the founder, right? So talk to us a little bit about like where sports kind of were introduced to you in your life.
Well, I mean, if I go way back, I think the beginnings of it, my parents both went to the University of Texas, and I grew up in Austin, Texas, a college town. So I was indoctrinated as a Longhorn fan from the beginning, from the jump. And, while fandom, when I was conscious of fandom, the Horns weren't as good as they are now, and not as much, they didn't have as much glory. It was still part of, the weekly tradition during the fall of watching the Horns and being really invested in what they were doing. And I played a little bit of sports. I mean, I played baseball and I played soccer, but I was a really small human growing up. So I couldn't make it into the high school ranks. I wasn't good enough, which is fine. And so I put all that, my love of sports into being a spectator, both in the college ranks. And then when, after college, I moved to Dallas and I became a big pro sports fan of the Dallas teams. So those are the origins for me.
All right. So are you a Cowboys fan too?
I am.
Same here, dude. Born and raised. So I'm a huge Cowboys fan. I'll go with them till the day I die. I don't even care. So
I agree. I mean, and I even like Jerry.
Oh, wow. I like you though. I mean, you're a unique individual, man. Good for you. You're a good human being. So I haven't seen a Cowboys Super Bowl. I'm 37. I haven't seen a Super Bowl since I was in the second grade. But you know what? we hang on with hope, and we just hope for one day that things will work itself out. But
Yep.
so growing up as a Longhorns fan, real fast on that, like, do you have any favorite memories of watching the Longhorns play, whether it was football or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time they had a moment to be good and me being conscious of it. I think it's 1990. They played in the Cotton Bowl against Miami. That season they called it the Shock the Nation tour because they were unexpectedly really good, and then they just got whipped in the Cotton Bowl on New Year's Day. I mean, just absolutely destroyed, rolled, and it was one of my first times I remember of being like really disappointed as a fan. Where you have like heartbreak because
Yeah.
the team had been so good all year and had unexpected wins. And I don't know, it was that part really hit me. And then the follow up to that is the Cowboys were good right after that. So I got into the Cowboys a little bit. So 92, 93, and then whatever it's 95, whatever the years were, I was definitely on board for when the Cowboys were good. So those were my memories of, I guess, my salad days as a sports fan.
No, that's awesome, man. Hey, I might make my way down to UT next year. I'm a Buckeyes fan. It's weird. I'm a Boise State grad, but I'm a huge Ohio State fan, like massive. And so I
Really?
typically go to 1 or 2 games a year. I travel out to go watch the games. And, they got Texas again. I kind of want to go check it as a bucket list item for me to
You
kind of
should
go to
do
that
it.
stadium and check it. So, yeah, I was thinking to myself when you were talking, I'm like, that's actually on my like to-do list going into next year. So, hey, might be checking out a Longhorns game myself, man. So that's pretty cool. So Scott, as you were like growing up, I guess, and just being around the sports world, even as a fan, what problem were you seeing in sports that like maybe most people weren't paying attention to? Like, I guess kind of, and the purpose behind that question is kind of it's leading us into what you're doing now with the business venture with Booster. Were there any problems that you were recognizing, growing up?
I don't know if there were problems necessarily, but I was super interested in the business of sports and the analytics side of it. My business career, the foundation is all in analytics and finance. Like that's what I studied in school. That's what I started doing right out of college. And so, looking at it from the business stories around it, and that's part of the reason I like Jerry Jones so much. It's not Jerry the GM, it's Jerry the businessman that I'm really interested in. The stuff that he did for the organization, how he changed football. So those stories really stuck out to me, and I really gravitated towards, I don't know, like the analytical or the data centric stories that really changed the game. Like those things really stuck with me, and it I continued to follow them, from afar. And as I got, and this maybe has something to do with technology, as technology, like computers and databases and the ability to do analysis got more sophisticated, the types of analysis that you could glean from people running the show got more interesting to me, and more where you could see more of what was happening or the things that were driving the changes. And I think that's the big thing is I'm very interested in changes that really move the needle, in things that really drive substantial change in the way the business operates, and whether it's how profitable it is or how much they win, whatever. It could be any of those things.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. So you got the analytical mindset. That's kind of where that's I can see that now. It makes sense. Okay. And that's awesome. So I was looking at Booster as soon as I got the information from the team there, and I was kind of taking a look at the website. I was looking at this stuff. Like, I guess going into that business venture, it's interesting to me because it's all about fundraising, right? We're talking about,
Yep.
well, first let's get into that. Tell us, what is Booster, and then I'm going to follow up with some other questions here. So what is Booster?
Booster is an online fundraising platform that is different from all other fundraisers in that we raise money off of content. And what I mean by that is we build content hubs for teams. Think high school teams. High school teams are constantly raising money for operations, and they do it by selling something. They usually sell popcorn, candy, wrapping paper, mulch. I've heard some crazy stories of what they sell, or they do marketing campaigns that you get nothing. You don't even get a thank you. Our deal is we create a team page where the content that the kids are shooting themselves on their phone, or the parents are shooting off the field, and allow that content to live in one place, and then we charge a subscription for it. And the idea is, instead of buying something that's not connecting you to the sport or the activity, think of the popcorn. or not getting the thank you. You're getting connection to this loved one, this person that you care about, that you want to support. You're getting to see them on their journey with that team. And hopefully you get to enjoy or experience the story of their season through the lens of the phone, the images that are captured by the players and the moms, or the parents, excuse me.
Sure. No, that's a very interesting take. So let's look at this for a second. That's a very interesting take. First and foremost, for those who might not be fully aware, I think most people who are listening to this will probably understand this, but there is a cost associated with athletics, especially at the high school level. And it was funny, Scott, just the other night, I was at my buddy's house watching the UFC fights, and we were discussing how one school here locally where I graduated from, their budget for athletics compared to the school that was 2 miles down the road, literally straight shot 2 miles down the road. They had 50,000 sitting in their basketball budget. They had zero. The school down the street, another 4 miles down the exact same road, has 300 grand sitting in their football account for their boosters. Every school in the Valley, we have all these schools within like a 10-mile radius of each other, but their budgets are so much different. They fluctuate depending on the location. It's all geographic and everything. And so, but there is a cost associated with it. Like if these athletes, if these teams want to go travel, if they want to put on an event, if they want, but like there's a lot of travel that's involved now to go play in tournaments and so forth, before their seasons begin. Where are they going to get that money? The school can't pay for it. Like it's not going to be coming out of the school. So they got to do fundraising. So I think this is really, really cool what you've put together. So you mentioned it's different in the sense of you're using content. I have a question on like the rights of that content, right? So you got like Instagram videos, like on this platform in this central hub. I know that there's a lot of content creators that get out there to these athletic events and they create content. They post them all over Instagram, go viral. Let's just say, would you be utilizing their content, and then do the content creators get, I guess, credit for having that content in there? Like, how does it all work from that perspective?
Well, there's a lot there that I want to touch on. And first, I want to, you're one of the things I want to call back to. Your costs are going up. You're 100% right about that. I mean, the amount of, equipment and technology that you can purchase these days, the stuff that you can do to your field or the video boards. I mean, there's so much that goes into sports. And that doesn't even touch on the travel thing, which I think is actually where most of the money that's raised through a platform like ours goes to. And the fascinating thing about the travel piece, most of the money goes to food. That was the thing that really, really opened my eyes when I talked, and I've talked to thousands of coaches at this point. And I'm not saying this is universal, but a lot of the money that gets raised goes to feeding the kids on a road trip, because maybe one meal is covered and one meal is not. It might be feeding kids breakfast because they practice in the morning and they need something after practice. It might be a team dinner that's once a week. And I don't think most people understand, the impact that the money that they raised can have on these kids and their nutrition and then their success. And that's part of what the story, like telling the story of the team through the content is. So getting back to the content piece, Instagram, TikTok, et cetera. I've been in digital media for 20 years now, and I've spent a lot of time in the social part of digital media. Your experience with digital media is mostly algorithmically driven to engage with things that you're not personally connected to. So what I mean by that is if you log into Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you're mostly being served content that Facebook or TikTok is showing you to try to get you to stay on the platform longer. It's not really about engaging with the people that you really care about. That's not what it's about. Booster is the opposite of that. Booster is about this niche thing that people really care about, which in this case is this team or a loved one. And it's about serving up content just about that one thing. And so what that means is that the content that we think plays on Booster is not the same type of content that would play on Instagram. Booster is about being your authentic self. It's not, a viral video. It's not a polished clip of something. It's about the kids sharing the joy that they have in, doing something great. It might be the struggle that they have in trying to accomplish something, and they're not, they're really struggling in practice. It's about not just the star players, but also the bench warmers. So I guess my answer to your question is that I do think of Booster's content as being different. Now, the Instagram content can still play on Booster and somebody could get credit for it, but it's really not about that. It's really about this authentic connection between the team and their journey throughout the season and the end user who is most likely a loved one of theirs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And so my question is, so if somebody signs up for, like, let's just say the team has an account with you
Yeah.
guys, is it a recommendation that like the players are like, are they, they're required essentially to like put their content, like they're filming behind the scenes stuff.
Sure.
It's asked to, if they want to fundraise, they got to put their content onto the platform, right?
I think the more content and the better, or the more you put on there, the better it's going to be. But I think the reality is that there are going to be certain players that are more inclined to it than others.
Sure.
I mean, that's the reality of it. Not everybody's inclined to make content or to be, but there's going to be players on the team that do have that predisposition. Or there might be somebody in the school that has dreams of being a sports media person. I guarantee you that exists.
Oh yeah.
And so if you leverage that, if you leverage the people that are good at it, it doesn't have to be everybody. It really doesn't. You just need to have some people that are leading the charge and collecting the like I said, this content that already really exists. I mean, most parents are capturing videos and photos of their kid or kids, or the kids, and they're maybe sharing it with a couple of people in like in a text message thread.
Sure.
Why can't it live here so other people can enjoy it? Why can't it, this be the place where you put it so that grandma and grandpa that live in another state and don't get to see their grandson, playing in real time, get to see this. I think if we're doing it right, we create this community, this support system around the team. And hopefully it's a support system that endures even after that kid has left the team. Because for most of these kids, playing organized sports at the high school level is a transformative experience for them. It shapes who they are forever. And the statistics don't lie. I mean, there's all sorts of statistics out there of how it positively impacts their life going forward. And you can see it. It's teamwork, it's leadership, it's determination. There's all sorts of things that they learn on the field, off the field in practice, and through this, paternal and maternal figure of the coach, right? That's really powerful. And it sticks with them forever. I hope that we build a platform where they can continue to support the team so that the people that come up behind them have that same experience.
I love that, dude. It's so cool to me. And I think one thing you said there that I would like the listeners to take note on is there are plenty of people, I know it for a fact, because I'm talking to high school like kids all the time that are even in college. Like there's like little small community colleges in this area too. Like there are a ton of people who want to get into the media scene, right? Some of them are like doing some media internships with some of the local people and getting content, but like there's a lot that could utilize this and they could like be the account manager, essentially, like, getting all the information, getting all the videos in one spot, one hub from the parents. They're communicating consistently and doing all that. They're snagging it all so they can, essentially get all that in there for like a big storytelling scene in the hub. So that's pretty cool, actually. Like the whole concept of it is super unique. And I really like the approach on it. Now, I also keep thinking like the youth side of things. I have a son, he's 9, he's now getting introduced into the 7-on-7 football scene, which is getting big in Idaho now, which is a couple years behind the times here, but this is what it is. But 7-on-7 is massive around the country, and it's a club team, and there's fees associated with that as well. And then there's club football. There's some fees associated with that's coming up in the fall. And so I would imagine that this works for youth sports as well. Can you talk to me about that? Like, do you guys go into the youth scene too with the club athletics?
Sure. I mean, I think any team or activity, forget team even, any activity that raises money should consider using this. And we're built for that. That said, every sport, every level of every sport, every state, every district, they're all different. And they all have nuances to them that, we're learning about every day. I mean, football is way different than baseball. Baseball is different than volleyball. They're all different. And then you even get into like a state level, they can be different, can have some important differences. You take it down a level to the youth. We absolutely would want to do that. But youth, and specifically in like club, select, things like that, they have different needs. It depends on, what some youth and club teams probably are just fine for money and some aren't. And so it would be about, let me think how to put it. We absolutely want to try to tackle that. We know that our platform can be configured for it. If anybody wants, is interested in it and they have specific use cases around it, I would love to work with them to figure it out, because I know that we can do it. But I don't know that right out the gate, our current model fits perfectly for a youth sport.
Gotcha.
But I know we can get there with a little, guidance on what the needs of that program are.
For sure. No, the reason I even brought that up though is just because you mentioned the parents. I can picture the moms, some of them post it on Instagram, some of them don't. Some of them put it in a text thread, some of them don't. And so it's well, what if it was all just in one area? Well, what a concept.
We would want it to be. I think that the thing that I think about there is that there are club teams where, I guess it depends on how sophisticated the club is, but there are some where, like I said, some where they don't need money and they can just increase dues and or whatever the fees are, and it's covered. There's some where, hey, this would be a great way to offer scholarships, for example.
Sure.
For people that are that may be an angle. There's some where everything's covered, but maybe like a trip, let's take baseball, like the Cooperstown trip might be a thing. So those are all, we can handle all of those, but those are very specific use cases that we would want to work with somebody on to make sure that our platform fits that use case right. Because that's different than a high school team. Does that make sense? Where I'm going with that? But totally. I could totally see us doing it for any of those examples. We just would want to make sure that because we're a startup and we're new to this and we've never done that setup before, that we come up with a setup that really works for that user. I'm real big on, it's not a one size fits all approach, just anything that I build, but I also know that I don't know all the requirements for every single use case.
Totally. But that's how the more they come at you, you can find some solutions to them. I love that, man. Yeah. It goes back to what you said, business mindset, analytical mindset. Jerry Jones is always solving problems, right? You're always solving problems.
Exactly.
You got a lot of options for people. Well, let's talk about this real quick, Scott. I want to talk about how boosters started in the college space, through NIL and Texas beach volleyball. So on your guys' website, you see the Texas beach volleyball there. Talk to us a little bit about that. Give us a little bit of a background on that front.
Sure. Well, it started for me as a Longhorn fan. I think it's 2023. Texas had this moment where we had a really big win against Alabama on the road. It was a really big win. And I'm the kind of fan that reads the message boards and subscribes to Rivals and all that kind of stuff. And I was reading on the Rivals side about how raising money for NIL the money wasn't coming in as much as you would think. That's what it was something that was the gist of the story. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And so I reached out to a bunch of my friends who are big fans. And I was like, hey, do you give money to this? And to a man, none of them did. Some of them didn't know what it was. They didn't know why they should do it. They might've had a reaction like, hey, what, Texas doesn't need my money. But I knew that wasn't true. I just knew it. And I was like, oh, that seems like a marketing problem. And I've been a marketer most of my career. And so I called the University of Texas and I called the collective and I said, hey, I got this idea. I think I can help you raise money from more people if more people just knew to give. Let me do the marketing for you. I'll come up with a program where you can cover the ad costs, and I think we can get people to sign up for a recurring donation as long as they think that the football team is going to get better. Which ostensibly that's the equation, right? Is that money comes in, it goes to pay the players, the product gets better. It's I think if people knew that they could make an impact, they would. And long story short, I couldn't get any college to do it. I tried with most of the big name programs you could think of. I probably talked to 20. And it's not because they were short-sighted. They just didn't have the bandwidth to do it.
Sure.
They really didn't. They most of these collectives at the time were understaffed. They had, these goals that they needed to hit, and it was a really tough job for them. The more I learned about NIL and about how promises get made and then they have to go raise the money, that's how it worked. It's different now a little bit, but at the time you would hear these stories about an NIL deal. Well, they didn't have the money raised for that when they made the deal. They'd have to go raise it after the fact, which is very stressful. So I completely understand the position that they were in. And they didn't have time to deal with the grassroots, smaller donors, which I get. And so I was like, okay, what if I could connect fans directly to the athletes? Because there are athletes out there that aren't the high profile athletes that need help. They need this funding would make a big difference in their life. It might give them the ability to not work a second job or to do more training in the summer. It might give them access to better facilities. It could be anything. And I was like, there are all these athletes that have decent followings that could monetize it and really use the money. I was like, okay, what if I allowed this platform for an athlete to share their journey with their core fans being their friends and family, maybe it's all the people they went to high school with, because the reality is if a kid is playing at the next level, being like D1 or even D2 or D3, they're probably one of the better athletes to come out of their school in a long time.
Oh yeah.
And when they were in high school, whatever sport they played, there were a lot of people that paid attention to them and that would love to keep track of them. And for most athletes that aren't playing on Saturday, it's really hard to keep track. Like it's hard. If somebody's playing baseball at a D1 school, it's not easy to follow them, especially if they're not starting, So how do I give this player a platform to be able to share that journey and collect a little bit of money to support them? That was the idea. That was the first version of Booster that I started.
Wow. Okay. So how did that tie into the volleyball team? So I'm assuming that's kind of how that all worked into it.
Well, then I had the idea of like, okay, well, what if you allowed a team to do it, like a team to raise together? Because remember that when we first started this conversation, we were talking about the content from the high school teams, and I was talking about how some kids are going to be more inclined than others.
Sure.
Well, the same thing happened here. That not every kid is meant to make content, or they're nervous to do it on their own, or it could be anything. I was like, okay, well, what if they, there are teams like, and Texas Beach is one of them, that don't have NIL deals ready. Like the reason Texas Beach didn't is because they were a brand new team. They were a brand new program, the first in the history of Texas in like 30 years, something like that. And so I was like, oh, well, what if this was an opportunity for a team to raise collectively together and to split the money? And maybe it becomes a deal where you get people interested enough in the program to where it becomes like a legacy, to where people are still supporting Texas Beach even after you left, and it becomes this recruiting tool. I was like, that could be really interesting. And so we built it, and we did the beach volleyball, Texas program first. And we had some ideas about, that this could be a really good sport because it's growing. And so my partner and I went to the American Volleyball Coaches Association conference, which happens during the Final Four every year. And we were walking the floor, and there were all these vendors, as you have at a convention. And there was a fundraising aisle, and it was all popcorn. And the week before, my neighbor had come over to my house, and she's like, I had to buy popcorn for my nephew's team. I cannot have this popcorn in my house. Will you take it? And I looked at that. I was like, man, people don't really want that popcorn. I mean, I'm not saying the popcorn's not good, but I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's got to be a better mechanism where you don't have to pay. One, you're selling your popcorn inherently. You're selling something they probably don't really want.
Right.
Two, you have to pay for the cost of goods sold, the shipping, the fulfillment, all this stuff that most people would rather just have the money go into the team. And there's no connectivity. I was like, there's nothing it doesn't have anything to do with the sport. And once I got more into it and I learned all the different types of things that people sell, I mean, there's some crazy ones. I was like, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I was like, what if you built community? And I've always been really obsessed with this idea of like a community around a niche topic can be really powerful.
Oh, yeah.
If you really, I mean, it doesn't matter, I think there are examples all over the internet, but I'll give you one. I'm a big traveler, and I love learning about whether it's the frequent flyer mile stuff or maybe like ultimate itineraries for exotic travel. I use this site called Flyer Talk that's been around for 20 years. It's an old school forum, but the people there really care about certain things. I mean, really care. And if you ask them questions, they're so passionate, and that's really powerful. And so I've always been interested in like, how do you harness the power of these niche audiences that really care about something and create community? And that's what Booster tries to do.
I love the community factor. I was just taking notes on that with my phone because, man, it's funny, Scott, because I too am a marketer. I'm a marketing director. That's kind of my profession that I've gotten into the last 15 years, just kind of on that side. And I worked for a company called ClickFunnels for 6.5 years. A guy named Russell Brunson. He's a marketer, he's a big time marketer. But couple of things there. One of the things he did for community, which was interesting for a SaaS company, which was ClickFunnels for website building, landing page building, was he created a community called Funnel Hackers. I mean, he made that back in like 2015 or something. And it was just people that were, and you'd be amazed at the time. That's why they became the category king of funnel building. I mean, there's a ton of different softwares out there that do the same exact thing, but like he created a community of funnel hackers, and it was a niche topic. It was like, okay, cool. But then it became like a cool thing to be in this community, and you're a funnel hacker, and then they made all this stuff. Community is a big, big piece that I think people forget about in the business world, and anything for that matter. So that's why when you said that, as a marketer, my brain just goes, dude, that's brilliant. Very, very, very smart to do that, because people want to be a part of something. You know,
totally.
They want to have a connection to something. That's what it is. Popcorn doesn't give you that connection.
Yeah. I mean, what I tell coaches now, because sometimes coaches will look at me, they'll be like, hey, this sounds like work. And my response to that is, this is work you should be doing. Building a support system, a community around your team with, the way the costs are going. I mean, it'll make a huge difference for you, and it'll pay dividends in the long run, because if you do Booster right, you're going to have recurring revenue. And that's actually one of the key selling points that for a coach is that Booster is a monthly recurring model. And coaches, I'm telling you, you think like, oh, they only have expenses during the season. You're wrong. They have a lot of expenses during the off season, and having predictable income where they know when they can attack, a certain project, or when they can buy equipment, all of that stuff is really valuable to them, or really important to them, and takes some stress off, which allows them to focus more on your kid. And if you build that support system right, and you have monthly recurring, and people stay connected, you have a revenue stream that builds over time and becomes the sole. I mean, what I hope it becomes is this, the foundation of their fundraising for years to come, so that they don't have to worry about starting at zero every year. Because right now, a coach the season will start, and he'll spend his most important practices in the beginning of the year focused on, how do I get from 0 to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, as opposed to just focusing on the kids and doing, whatever training or whatever assessments they need to be doing in the beginning. I think that, any parent would gladly trade having their coach focus more on training than fundraising.
So interesting there, all of this. And that actually answered one of the questions, by the way, Scott. I was like, kind of, if parents and coaches are listening, what is one of the mindset shifts you hope that they're going to make? And I think essentially you answered that through that segment right there, because coaches should be doing this anyway. It's the work they should be doing. And so I do want to ask, though, to follow up with that, kind of stacking on that, what do you hope that, I guess, athletes learn about like ownership and responsibility and support through this specific model? Like, do you hope that the athletes learn something about this or with Booster?
Well, I hope that the athletes feel supported.
Sure.
I hope that the athletes have that experience where, something they share something. God, I would love it if an athlete, if a kid that rides the bench but has some milestone in practice and is able to share it and get kudos for it, has his moment. Like, it's that kind of thing. That's I guess I'm about storytelling. Like, I love the idea of a good story and a good, a team that does, achieves beyond their wildest dreams because of support from the community, something like that. I hope that kids learn, that community matters and that they feel that support. I hope they also learn that putting a little work in for the, and sharing the story actually makes a difference. Like, I hope that they learn that with a little bit of work, you actually raise more money.
Yeah.
Where they learn that, that their work led to something. And for the ones that are really good at baseball or football or whatever, and that have a future, I hope there's a world where we build enough community around their exploits on the field in high school, to where if they go off and go and they go to D1 or D2 or D3, that we can promote their NIL version of Booster that can help support them, and they continue the Booster journey into college. Like, I hope that there's a world where a kid that's good enough, and for the people that watched him in high school, they want to keep following his journey, and they're willing to pay a few bucks a month to follow it. So while he's in school.
Absolutely, man. That's super cool. So Scott, if I'm a coach right now or I'm a parent and I'm interested in this right now, how do we get started on Booster? Like what's the next steps for the parent or the coach that's listening to this, or even the athlete that's like, okay, this sounds interesting. Where do I go and what do I do?
Well, one, go to booster.club. That's our website. And whether you're an individual athlete or like in the NIL space or a high school team, um, you can find information about how to sign up. You can also email me directly, scott@booster.club, and I can talk to you about how we can support your team or your NIL career. We want the experience to be really because this is so new and nobody's ever done it before. We do a lot. It's a high touch sales process for us. So
Sure.
we really want to interact with people and show them how to do Booster well. And we want to have success stories that we can point to. So the more high touch, experiences we can have, the better, which basically means you're going to go on to Booster and either fill out information for us to get back to you, and we'll have an account manager talk to you, or you can reach out to me directly and I'll work with you on getting your team on board and getting you set up so that you can be successful.
Oh, I love that. For those listening, make sure you hit the link that's in the description. You can find the website here in the description, and then Scott's email. I'll debate whether I put that in the description or not, because sometimes you put that in the description of a podcast,
Sure.
It goes all over the internet. All of a sudden, you're getting bombarded with stuff. So we might be cautious there. So if you guys are listening, take note, rewind that, and go listen. You can get his email address. But Scott, so what is the plan, I guess, going forward? I want to know you as the business owner. Scott is the business owner, the founder of Booster. What would you like to see in the next 3 to 5 years with this platform, and where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years as kind of running this and seeing where it takes it, how it takes off with sports as sports evolve,
Well, I think that the more I've dug into this space, the more opportunities there are than I realized. I'll give you one example. FFA, Future Farmers of America, 4-H, marching band, all of these programs raise money. So I think, my hope that for the next year, we create some beachheads in either certain states or certain sports. So I've kind of thought about the geography of America and what states have the biggest opportunities for us. Some of it's because of the way that the high schools organize themselves. Like Texas is a very unique situation because Texas is very organized and has, let's just say they have the biggest state-run coaches convention in the country. And so it's a one-stop shop for being able to get in front of lots of people versus, so that's like a state example. So, you go after Texas, Florida, California with boots on the ground, and then you try to encounter, we're trying to work all the states, but there's no way we can do that on the ground, like boots on the ground. And we'll work in any state in the nation. We're just focusing on those big ones because they're the biggest opportunity and the easiest for us to get to. So that's one, is trying to make some geographical inroads. And then hopefully we also find some sports that really work for us. I can't pretend to know which ones are going to be, the ones that get traction first, but I have some ideas in my head about which ones I think, either because it's the type of sport that maybe lends itself well to content. Maybe it's because it's a sport that needs it more and is willing to try something new. I think we try to make some inroads in some different sports. And so hopefully after year one, we'll have some idea of what an average team looks like. How much do they raise? What does it look like to go from one team in a school to multiple teams in a school? What does it look like to go from multiple teams in a school to like a whole district? And I don't really know how things spread in this world, in this universe, but I could totally see a world where you get a team inside of a school and then it spreads to 5. I could also see a world where you get one team in a school, maybe it's a volleyball team, and that volleyball coach or the parents talk to other volleyball coaches, and so it spreads that way. I could see it being you get into a school and you do really well and the district notices and you get at the district level. All of those things are possible. I don't know yet, but the analytical, like business-minded person in me is looking for a path that I can calculate, looking for something that has a trajectory that I can plan on. And so that basically that means trying a bunch of different things this year, hoping that I can get some learnings that guide me into years 2, 3, and 4, to where I can know how much money I can allocate to going after a state, a sport, a district, whatever it is. And, it's this, I don't know, there's a lot we don't know yet, but I'm excited. That's the analytical part of my brain is excited to learn about which things are going to work, and knowing that I have to try a bunch of stuff, it's unknown which parts are going to be the most effective.
Yeah, but isn't that the cool part about business and just like everything? It is learning who your customers are, letting them speak to you, letting your audience speak to you, and then you figure it out, and then you go and you run with it from there. It's just getting all the data points that you don't fully have yet. It's kind of exciting. As I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, yeah, that's like the exciting part of the business is the learning phase, and then you take it from there and you run with it. I think that's super, super cool.
And you get to talk to coaches, and the coaches, I'll tell you one thing that I've learned. I ask every time I talk to a coach, and like I said, I've talked to over 1,000 of them. I always ask them why they got into this. And coaches are kind of amazing this way. There's usually 3 answers. Either they love ball. They love ball so much they dedicated their life to it. They had some coach that impacted, or a team experience that impacted them so much that they wanted to give back, or they just love the kids.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like, there's something really endearing about, like, just genuine about that. And coaches have to do so much. Like, there's so much on their plate. And if I can make it easier in any way on them so that they can have more time to devote to coaching or more resources, whatever the case may be, that's the reason I do this. I want to make an impact.
So freaking cool, dude. I love it. And I'm all for it, man. I love talking business and sports. I think it's super, super cool. That's why I enjoy doing these interviews. And Scott, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thanks for taking the time to share this story with us, to share more about Booster. And, it's pretty cool what the platform is. So let's get this out to the world. I'll ask all my, listeners here to please share this with a friend, a family member, anybody who could be impacted by this platform. I know there's tons of you out there, so hopefully we can push this out to the masses. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking your time and sharing it with us today, man.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. And for all those who are listening, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave us a review. Apple Podcasts, if you guys leave us a review on that platform, let us know what you thought of the interview with Scott. And make sure to hit the subscribe button, because we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.